Hello, good people. Does Texas A&M have the top pass rusher in the 2025 NFL Draft? I'm Tim Noonan, and this channel is a fan's perspective on the NFL and college football. This week, a way too early draft profile on Nick Scourton, edge rusher out of Texas A&M, transferred there from Purdue last year. So really excited just to share my thoughts on him and where I think he fits in the NFL. The grade that I have on Scourton is 7.72. I do think he's very close to being able to beat out the median NFL starter. Scourton is a powerful stand-up outside linebacker. I think he could rotate in as a pass rusher in the NFL today. I still think he has things to work on. I think the consistency and polish on his pass rush moves needs to be tweaked just a bit, but he's pretty close to being ready. I think the thing that keeps him from being that 8.0 or above is just his ability to anchor in the run. This year, if he consistently goes out and anchors against big offensive linemen, if he is able to put his hands in guys' chest and put his feet in the dirt and tighten up run lanes and shed blocks, this grade shoots up to like an 8.5, 8.75. I think his draft stock rises from the mid-first round to the top half of the first round. His top strength is just his athletic versatility and size. He is crazy explosive for a dude that is 6'4", 280, listed at 285 with Texas A&M right now. Just brings a lot of power, brings a lot of speed. And to have that in the mold of a guy who moves with pretty solid agility and who shows really great straight line speed, that is a player that a lot of 3-4 defenses could use. And the players who fit that mold are very few and far between. They don't come along very often. When you look at the top 32 paid pass rushers or edge players in football, two of those guys really are two, maybe three of those guys. If you're looking at Rashawn Gary, Kwity Paye, and like Jonathan Greenard, but even Jonathan Greenard is a little bit slimmer at like 6'3", 260. A guy who is pushing 280, who moves the way that Scourton does, just doesn't come along but every 2 to 4 years. One of the areas of his game that I think gives him a great leverage advantage is his ability off the snap. I rated this at a 6.9 on average between the different games that I watched. I watched him against Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and a couple others. And I think he also has crazy bend for a guy at his size. Being 280 pounds and having the bend to be able to go parallel when you're running around an offensive lineman is just wild. He had a strip sack in one of the games that led to a turnover because he just bent so well against the offensive lineman he was playing and just stole the ball from McCord against Ohio State. Some of the statistics that align with what I'm saying are he logged 15 tackles for loss and 10 sacks last year, and I expect similar numbers from Texas A&M this year. He faced some great talent in the Big Ten last year. He's going to face some great talent in the SEC this year. And I don't expect his production to fall off a ton because he's on people's radar now. People kind of know that, okay, we have to chip him here. We're going to have to watch out for this pass rush move there. So teams are going to go in with more of a refined strategy against him. But even still, having preparation, he just has an overwhelming amount of talent for any college football offense to really keep in a bottle. This week against Florida, I think his matchup is going to showcase a lot of parts of his game. So in pass rush, Florida has hulking offensive linemen on both sides, just gigantic tackles who I think are going to be a good test for the power that I want to see improve in his game. I think his pass rush moves are most effective against offensive linemen who have similar levels of power to him, but I want to see him really take it up a notch against those offensive linemen who are clearly stronger than he is. Florida is going to be a good test for him because Florida has some pretty large offensive linemen at tackle, and so I think those offensive linemen will be a good test for him to display what he can do against really powerful blockers in the pass rush. Scourton's best fit in the league is as a stand-up outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. I think he could be versatile in a defense that's going to run a lot of nickel, where he is going to have to rush the passer a lot and stand up in the run a lot. I do have those concerns about him being able to anchor. I anticipate that getting better, but if that doesn't get better, that could really impact his draft stock. But right now, I expect the run anchor to get better. I expect him to prove himself to be a 3-down player by the end of this season. And taking all that into account with his ability to pass rush, I think his best fit is with a team that already has a pretty filled out defense and who could use a great secondary pass rusher. So some of the teams that are going to be drafting later in the draft, where I think it's most likely that he'll go. Right now, he's being mocked around the 20s in the few mock drafts that I've seen recently. And so some of the teams that I think he fits with are the Chiefs, the Eagles, and in particular, the Houston Texans. For a number of reasons, he could fit in a lot of different defenses. I don't know if the Texans right now are the best fit of all, but looking at their defensive scheme, their personnel, and their contract situations, and considering that C.J. Stroud is probably taking this team to the playoffs, they'll be picking in the 20s. An important thing to consider is the Texans have an elite pass rusher in Will Anderson, had a great year last year, and when the end of his rookie contract comes up in 2026, and the Texans have to back up the Brinks truck for him, it's going to be really nice for them to be able to have a first-round rookie with a fifth-year option on a contract in Nick Scourton to have on the other side of Will Anderson, because they're going to have to put so much money into Will Anderson's contract that having this young, great developmental pass rusher on the opposite side of Will Anderson, who's not going to really be able to be doubled because Will Anderson's on the other side, I think it's a great fit. So if there's a team who has a strong defensive front and they can slot Scourton in as that number 2 pass rusher or as that secondary high-level threat, I think that's his best fit in the league. Looking at the other players in this draft who are playing the edge position, I think he is in the mix for the top 3. I think he'll probably end up the 3rd overall pass rusher and edge player behind Abdul Carter and James Pierce. Abdul Carter is a bit of the second coming of Micah Parsons. It's kind of wild, the versatility he has in his game. And James Pierce, with his length and his speed and his viciousness as a pass rusher, I don't see a huge window for Scourton to overtake those guys as the 1 and 2 pass rushers, but he is a really high-level third option. The fact that a guy who has the talents that Scourton has might be the 3rd best pass rusher in this class really just speaks to the level that Abdul Carter and James Pierce are at. I haven't graded them, but I have watched some clips of them, about a half of a game of each of them, and then read a few profiles here and there, and they seem to be pretty electric and really day one impact players who also have a lot of room to grow as potential elite NFL defenders. And Scourton is in that mix, but it just seems to be a little bit surer right now for Abdul Carter and James Pierce. My comp for him in the NFL is Rashawn Gary, just a big defensive lineman in a 3-4 defense, able to rotate in. If you need him to be a 5 technique, he can do that. If you need him to stand up and drop back occasionally on a zone, he has the athleticism to do that. I think the difference in their game is Scourton is coming in a bit more refined as a pass rusher, where Gary needed to improve that when he came into the league. But Gary came into the league as a really solid, strong, stout run defender because he's just crazy powerful. But if Scourton can grow in his anchor and in his run support in the way that Gary has grown in his pass rushing, I think Scourton could end up developing into the player that Rashawn Gary is, because their physical gifts are very similar. Huge explosiveness and long speed, 6'3", 6'4", 280 pounds, and a lot of tools to work with physically. And going back to that situational fit in the NFL, where I think he's going to be where I think his best fit is as that secondary pass rusher or that secondary threat if there's another threat on the defensive line. That Rashawn Gary comparison makes sense for me in that light as well. Rashawn just got paid this year. He is in a stacked defense with Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, Xavier McKinney, to name a few, and he makes a huge impact because there's a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and if you have a guy one-on-one with Rashawn Gary, that's scary for an offense to plan for. And I think in a year, in 2 years, if there's an offense playing against a Houston Texans defense that has Nick Scourton on one side, Will Anderson on the other, and you know that you're doubling Anderson, you're scared of what Scourton's going to do one-on-one. If you have thoughts, make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the analysis. If you want to see the film that goes into this analysis, I have a video linked above here just to show the strengths and the area of improvement and how that shows up on film. If you like the video, make sure to take a second to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so that you know the next time I'm on here talking about football at the pro or college level. Next week, I'll be back with a breakdown of Ollie Gordon, who will be taking on Utah State on September 21st. The time of that game to be determined right now. Thank you for your time. Talk to you soon.